Hello Tech Genius, I am Ravi. Have you ever imagined a place where learning is as dynamic as the technology shaping your world? Then here's a deal. With iMatix, you can make sure the learning is exciting, impactful right from the beginning. You have interactive sessions with expert-led courses in the world of tech, from data science to cloud computing. It's not just about a session, it's about doing, building, learning by solving real problems. So let's get started. I'll explain that again. Just started it. I like last time I created the flow for the watch one. I'll create it for this one as well. We make you understand this. If you have any doubt, let me know. For OIDC, as we discussed, OIDC is the identity layer, right? Built on top of a 2. It helps you to verify the identity of the user based on the authentication performed by your authorization service. And it also, after that, it also led to obtain the profile information from the user. Over REST APIs they use. How it was basically, if I draw a diagram and show it to you. Like this end user we have. End user could be you. Like relying party. And then we have a mod I can create. Reliant party. Relying party could be any client. Like earlier in auth flow, we are using this client. It could be the Paytm here. If you are Paytm, want to get your user details right. Your username, password, your family and everything, every detail about your user profile right. They want to set. Like the party would change. Now you know I decided to line part. They will call the line part. Why this is called the relying party? Because right. This one, try to fetch the user details. Any OAuth2 client, like any of this client which uses the OAuth2 also uses the OIDC. Now the Paytm earlier only using the OAuth2 only. Right now it's using the OIDC concept as well. It as well. Now it's using series. That's why it's calling the relying party. If only getting the auth2 authentication it was only performing, then it's called the client as per the auth flow. But in OIDC flow, now it will use the OIDC concept on the top of OAuth2. Now it will call the relying party. I got one more. This is called the OpenID provider AM, which is basically a local ID. The white dot. Access management. Could be any AM, right? It's just a general way. It could be a ForgeRock AM or an access management product of any other company or Facebook company or like a company. Whoever you have in this access management product like ForgeRock who can use OAuth2 OIDC concept. It can be anyone the right AM. OpenID provider called, or that whose authentication server, that what is called OpenID provider authentication server that implements the OIDC. That's called the OpenID provider, right? Any authentication server that perform and will use the OIDC, while it will use OIDC basically to fetch the user details, to identify the user and get his details. That's why the OpenID provider. Here we have the different servers we call the authorization server and the source server. Now, this one can hack and only one server can act as a both for OpenID provider. Basically, any authorization server, any kind of server, any authorization server which performs the OAuth flow as well and can perform the OIDC as well, that will be called as OpenID provider. In this also, like it will give the tokens, provide the tokens, and it will fetch the user details. And then it will respond with the claims, all the user details to the relying party. We will see that now. From here now. Now this one. Here the relying party, like suppose Paytm trying to fetch any, they want to authenticate the user anyways, they want to get the user details right. Now it will send the redirect message, authenticate, send the authentication request here, right? Send authentication request. The authentication request right. Send the authentication request to the end user. End user authenticates from where it should authenticate with the AM. It will authenticate the AM. It will go to the end user, will go to the AM. AM with the AM because it has this AM has all these values right. As a client, everything is established. This has the identity present in AM. Then it will ask for the authenticate with the AM or here for authentication. Here it will go for authentication. Send request to send it forward to AM right. Now once it's authenticated, then authentication and authorization request. For sending for authentication, then OpenID provider will send the details for the authentication and authorization. Once it's authenticated, then OpenID provider will send the details to end user to perform the authentication, or like you will see, right? We click on allow button and also that's authorization request is sent. It takes the concerns. It asks end user to perform authentication. And authorization request. That's right. It's asked the end user, then it tried to authenticate and then send out after authenticating end user, putting everything for username, password, hour. Whatever the authentication we are provided to, the user will send a request for that to confirm the authentication to the OpenID provider. Once it's authenticated, our authentication process is done right. Then it's send the OpenID provider. Send a token requires response with the ID token, or the OpenID provider send the token to the relying party, because all the process with end user with OpenID provider is done. Now the relying party will take a control over the request because it has already been authenticated and authorized by the OpenID provider. Here it will send the authentication, send the response with the ID token and access. Right? Because OIDC was basically with the ID token. OAuth2 doesn't have user ID token. We can fetch the ID token, but that is a part of the OIDC job. The ID token only used by the OIDC over there. If we have anywhere using, you see the ID token is being used for any application, you can consider that that's application using the OIDC concept over there. Then once it's spawned with ID token, access token, then on the basis of this token, it will send a request with access token too. Like here, then it will request with the token to use access. How it will access this one, the user data. Here, it is here, it is here, it is here, it is. Here it is. Here it is, here it is, here it is, here it is. Is here it is, here it is, here it is, here it is. Here it is here, it is here. If I have to find the user info details, then in OpenID provider will respond with the details. And then OpenID provider responds with claims. I'll tell you about claims here. I do provide the claims. What are basically claims we refer to when we're talking about the user information? Like it's OpenAlies on claims. Claims could be any specific information, like it represent like a piece of information for a user profile. Any piece of information that which AM displays the data. AM displays the data. AM displays the data to the relying party. What kind of piece of information it will send to the relying party? What can be that piece of information? What details are there? Is username, its given name, its local name, right? Anything. What that piece of information it will sell? That piece of information is called claims. If anybody says and discuss about if you see any claim using a word using for IDC or in any of the 4-year projects, they were talking about the user information, user profile information, but it is a particular set of the information they had talking about. You can increase this in claims, and you can increase the attributes in the claims. You can reduce it as well. That we can do. That's why here we can go to the user information. Then it responds with the claims of claims, which is a piece of information about the user profile. That's how this OpenID flow works. Any question on that and any queries? AM authenticates, right? Right. AM authenticates to OpenID provider, right? Right. OpenID provider authenticates the user. OpenID provider authenticates the user. I'll just write it like that. And user get authentic. Get it by AM. Now it is good. Then what it is the next? Respond with the ID token. Once it is authenticates it, responds with the ID token. It gives the ID token to the user. Once you have said that, like in auth flow, right, we are getting the code, and then we are getting the access token. In the same way, it responds with the ID token and access token as well. Then they'll use this access and ID token to verify and fetch the user data via this user endpoint. And then this user endpoint will give us the user details about the user. Like what kind of details it will provide that will respond to the claim with the end user. It will provide the claims. We say claims or claims is a user details only, but it's a particular piece of information. User details could be anything, right? It could have a 10 or 15 attributes, but we just need 4 or 5 attributes. That's only required, right? Like your first name, last name, your email ID, or whatever only required attributes for this relying party. Only that information will be assigned to this relying party. We'll discuss a little more in claims in coming class. I go back to tomorrow. Tomorrow we will discuss. This is called a claim with a piece of information. Yes, Pranay? Basically, if you see the comparison, as I told you, we have this end user in OIDC flow. All the actors of these are called basically all actors like OIDC or key components, or you can say any OIDC actors like that. End user is a relying party OpenID provider. The same way the auth flow have these actors resource on our client authorization resource server. These are called the key components or key actors of all these. OAuth2 and OIDC flow. This is how the party. I am out coming back to the auth flow as well. You understand the difference. What's the difference here, and also what OAuth2 is doing and what extra here. If you see, we have everything is like this. But after this one, this access token is getting one more extra detail after this one, basically after this part, right? If I'm going to show you, this is done by simple. When it gets access token extra information, write this extra information to get the ID token. Basically here to get the extra. This still here, it on the auth flow works still here. Auth2 flow responds with ID token and access token. Right after that, this is the OIDC where it comes up. That's why it's called like. That's why it's called that. OIDC is like his identity layer built on top of auth2, because half of the perform work done by auth2. And then this response with ID token, get the ID token and use that ID token to verify the user information by the OIDC. That's why when I'm saying this line like OIDC, this part is OIDC means called full OIDC, but the main functionality of the OIDC starts from here. Before that, it's probably auth flow. OAuth2 is built on top of auth2, right? Its uses extend the functionality of the auth2. It uses functionality for auth. Take all this functionality access token ID token and then use that token to fetch or verify the user information details. That's why it's a part of the auth2, or you can say OIDC is built on top of auth2. Got Previous, this is the extra layer, right? This is extra layer this time. This is the OIDC was doing before that auth2 is doing. Total, it's called OIDC, but the main before that auth functionality, what we discussed before, that is working, and after that this user information comes in picture. Whole concept called OIDC, but it's what built on top of auth2. Let's discuss. Like we were doing this hybrid grant we discussed, right? Yes, Pranay. Let's try to do that. We use fit the code and I token we will use. Now can you create a user? Now there is you want to practice, or do I? Should I show? On Postman. You want to practice. We'll do the hybrid grant. We did it once, like we do it again because the part of this OIDC, then you will understand. We need to create a new client. Any client in client secrets cooperate and response type. You will give code and ID token. Can you share your screen? I'll just. Can I take refresh client? You can take refresh client, but you need to add the ID token. You need to go to the client once. I mean into the. Unfortunately. And check the client has. Go to client, go to that client you're talking about. And then go to your client or any refresh client. We need to go to advanced tab. You need to add the grant type over here. Grant type would be how you need to add the authorization code. You need to add the grant type. Can I take what client or refresh client? I'll take any client refresh client. That's fine. Go to advanced and then go to here, grant type. Can I add which one? Here it will work with authorization code. That's fine. You don't need to add the extra. Now we need to add the response type. We need to see we should have code and ID token. We have already that response type. The second line first code ID token. What is the token? Yes, already is there. We can use this client now. I hate that client for to get the authorization code and ID token. But your response type would be with code and ID token. Go to 17th line, number not 17. Here change the code %20 token to code %23 ID- token. ID- token. Core ID-token. That's it. Can I add the response type? Any space is required after 20 or something. After 20 space is required. No, after 20 space is required. Is it fine now? That's fine. The code. ID_token. Can I copy your? See, I want to show you this code. Is there an ID token? Is there, right? Yes, this ID token you are receiving now. Copy this ID token into the notepad once. Oh, is it a lengthy one? Let's see one thing. Up to this one. Sorry, up to this one. Complete token. How? It's after starting from UI to I wonder. I2 to this one. You have to end. Help. Copy separately once. Copy separately. Can you go to the JBOT? I Can I paste here? Hello. Paste here. Yes, user details came through. These are all the user details and the subname and everything. If you want to fetch this ID token information, you can do that. Yes, ID token information. And you can get this detail from the curl postman as well. Let's try to fetch this from postman ID token. Can I add here one more? Create one new request. ID. You can do OpenID or ID token anything. OpenID token, OpenID. and I give the user that basic auth and give the user information and go to the authorization. Basic auth, basic auth. Refresh line for drug. Refresh line correct. And do that. Do that. In respect, can I remove? I can remove. Here at the end of the auth2, after that you can do ID token info. Can I remove relation root? Sorry, can I remove this part? auth2 / ID token info. Is it correct? Token. auth2 / ID token info, that's fine. Make it a post request. It's a post request. ID token info, is it correct? Or can I take small t as a capital T? No, ID token info in small letters is fine. Now show that. That's fine. That's fine. You are HTTP localized Rajiv / auth2. That's fine. ID token info post request basic, right? And go to the param. Go to the param. Put ID hyphen token in key and there in ID token value. ID token value. ID token value means I missed. Aware that you copy the EY and fill that one. You copied one EI, I copied it, and there's a long token. That one, that value. Do one thing, get one new request, make it new request. Oh, this is ID underscore token or ID token. ID underscore token small. What happened? This ID token value. No, you are not. You need to put the code %tree1 on that one. I think it's coming. Here I have sent a hit. ID-token. And the fine order. The votes to ID token info. Show me the from where you're fetching. Show me the authorization. Click on the authorization. And here only. First, which client you are using, refresh client and all. Basic code. ParamID token. Go back to your URL. Now, not this URL from where you fetch the data notepad. Not go to the new request where you have code %20 for refresh client. Not this one. When you need to hit that again. I just want to see. This is your hitting for the implicit client. See, you need to hit for the refresh client. You need to change the client name. Like ID equal to implicit client, you need to hit the refresh client. When you change the client name. Now fetch the ID token. Copy this one and copy the ID token value and put into that, and being a boss, right? Why are you not getting result? That's fine. Click on hit once. In ID token info, I guess it's your I is using capital, you need to use in a URL. I should be a small. Before question mark. This is info, this I is capital info. I is capital. you need to use it small. I should be small after token, this one. And now hit once. See, now you are getting all these details that what we are trying to hit from JWT. I all right over there. Now you are seeing all these details are here with this. They were provided this OAuth2 token in front point where you get all this user information. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel.